Good evening. Welcome to the 1873 TV. Tonight we are talking about the untold story about power. And what is this untold story about power in Africa? How is it distributed? Why is it that there's a feeling that some people have more power than others? And joining me from Toronto is Tenil Jacobs. Is it good afternoon?
Good late afternoon now. Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah. And how is Toronto?
Well, weather's changing, but things are good, yeah?
Things are good. So you left Zimbabwe some 17 years ago.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, that long ago. Yes, I did.
So what do you remember of Zimbabwe?
I think at the time I left, things were just starting to change, but it's still before things got really bad. I know at the time I left, we were still part of the Commonwealth. That's part of what made it easy for me to come to Canada. But slowly things were beginning to change. Everybody, in terms of politically, I mean, it was a really drastic change from what childhood had been like,
Yeah.
In a very short period of time. But I think within about a year or two of me being in Canada, then it seemed as if it just deteriorated even so much more. So a lot of Zimbabweans I know actually came here from home to settle in Canada around that same time that I came.
So what is it that you hear of the Zimbabwe you left? Are you satisfied that Zimbabwe is moving up or moving down?
No, it does not. It doesn't seem as if it's moving forward. I mean, again, at the time I grew up in Zimbabwe, everything was really, really good. I mean, I think about 92 was when things started going down slowly. But even then, it was almost like a gradual decline. And then it hit the 2000s, and it seemed to just be like it fell off a cliff.
Okay.
It seems every so often people talk of like this rebuilding happening, but then it seems like as if things stay the same, or if not get worse. So from what I've heard, things have just declined for most people living in Zimbabwe. A lot of people are trying to leave, and now it's harder to leave because there's so many more restrictions placed overseas.
Yeah.
So it seems as if people are beginning to feel a bit helpless about the situation.
So this idea of active citizenship, what is your take on it?
Well, active citizenship is necessary for any change to happen. I mean, it's one of the basic foundations of community psychology, and community psychology is based upon, from a health perspective for the most part, but it can apply across the board on building up communities and making things better for those that live in those communities. And so that can't be possible without those people who live in the community being active. And this is the reason why a lot of NGO operations don't actually help, because they come in and they're doing what they think is needed and not what is actually needed, because the only people that know what's actually needed are the people that are living in those situations, right? So even any time that we're trying to start up any community initiatives here, because of course there's poverty and there's low income places, and there are community initiatives that happen here, they're done from inside the community, right? Where people actually get an immersed experience where they go in and they speak to those that live in the community, those leaders, because all communities have some people that are leaders, even if it's just the granny there that everyone goes to.
Yeah.
All communities have some leaders within the community that know the needs of the people in the community, and that's who can help actually make changes, right? So it's not someone coming from up above that's going to help change things. It's the people that are in the community, right? And then that empowers, and it's actually an empowering thing for them themselves, for those people, right? They become empowered by realizing that they can do stuff, and then it can go get bigger. Once they start realizing that, first of all, the next step with community psychology is you build on the strengths. So you build on the strengths within those communities. So as much as things may be tough, there's always strengths in communities.
So if you look at the civic education, and you look at the societies, the way they're structured, do you agree that they're structured around interest? If I have an interest, then I get involved. If I
you know
have,
what? There's always a self-interest, but that's the thing, is that it's because, and I think it's as the world has become more individualistic in nature.
no,
Right?
it was always the case. Don't you agree that it was the design of life?
It is a design of life to
That
self-
we must be self-centered.
Yeah,
And,
we will always work in self-interest, right?
Yeah.
But the difference was before we recognized that the welfare of those around us was actually in our self-interest. You know, it's like.
Yeah, but if you look at
I think the only example-
if you look at
only
the
example-
blueprint of
Sorry.
life, so if you look at
Yeah.
the blueprint of life, if you were the creator of life, what would you have been occupied with? Just building this ecosystem called human life. Wouldn't you
Yeah.
be concerned about how to live it? Because if you create
we
something,
needed to be sustainable.
if you create something without the means to live it, what would life be like?
Well, exactly. So you create a sustainable ecosystem, which is pretty much what the ecosystem is. It's self-sustainable.
But that's
right?
independent of human creativity.
Yeah.
So that was
Yes.
the means to live life
Yeah.
was created outside human ingenuity and
Yeah.
creativity. So our job is to live it. We don't bring anything into life. We, as a mother, you don't bring anything. Everything that you need for the child is already catered for. The milk, the food, everything must be there already. So when we look at societies like Zimbabwe, there are people who then say one of us must lead us, must manage us, must run us. And therefore, we become passive passengers of
Yeah.
life. And the question is, could life have been created to allow this kind of ecosystem where we are inactive but expect outcomes?
No.
So if it's no, when we look at the organization of life, there are people who appear to have power, and there are people who appear to be powerless. And there are people who actually expect other people to be powerful so that they can be led to another place in their life. Do you see this sense of fatalism and nihilism where people just say the future will take care of itself? And then you now have the discussion of today where you have this woman called Grace Mugabe. She is a wife of the president. So she has already qualified to be in his ecosystem. And the question is, how do we understand and appreciate the person called Grace, the person called Robert Mugabe? Because we now know that they are human. But other people would want these two people to be superhuman. So they make news. Everything they say, they don't say, it's news. Other people begin to talk about them. And when you are talked about, you then trend.
Yeah.
You increase your brand equity. And other people say, but why are you being talked about? Yet there are some other people nobody wants to talk about.
Well, it's all media, right?
I'm
it's
saying
all
is-
part of it.
No, media can capture it, but at the end of the day, power will always go to those people who become vocal.
But you
Because
know, I think that it's possible that people just understand the role of the president, and they see it more like a royalty, for example, right? So if we're looking at, for example, the monarchy, right? We've got the king, and then it's like his family it's their family line that gets to be in power next, or whatever the case may be. It's possible that people see, you know, instead of seeing a president and understanding the roles of a president, they're seeing him more like a king of the country, right? So therefore, if anything happens to him, his wife then becomes
But
the next.
imagine the first time you arrived in Canada, what was your idea on the plane?
As in what?
No, you don't know where you are going.
Oh, yeah.
So you anticipate something,
Yeah.
but actually you don't know.
I have no idea. No, yeah, I think one of the biggest
So
anticipations for
the
anyone coming
biggest
overseas
thing is that
life.
we imagine what a president does,
Yeah.
and we actually create an image of a president. Sometimes that image is so far off from the reality of that position.
Yeah.
And we always think the neighbor is somebody who knows better, who thinks smarter, who is
You know,
more...
I think with our president in particular, and I noticed this, I think the last elections, not this past one, because again, I do follow what's going on at home. There was, might have been the last elections where people were going out and interviewing people, like the laymen, the people, the regular people in the community, asking them how they felt about him. And one of the most common responses was something along the lines of them seeing him as having saved the country from the colonialists. Right?
So there is that idea that there is an idea that he's a liberator.
Yeah, there you go.
Therefore, he is entitled
Yes.
to think or act on behalf of other people.
Yes.
So let me just, we have other people who are watching. Akulin, Nazare, welcome. Brian, Zingi, welcome. Joseph, Mutongomera, Savannah Madamombe, Caston, Mpanda Sekwa. Savannah then says she has transferred her husband position to herself via bedroom. And Jeanette Begov Senior, if bullshit was dynamite, Zimbabwe would be blown away. And Steve Rengo, welcome. So we are talking about this issue of influence, proximity to power. That there are people who are close to you who are likely to influence you. And this comes, human beings can't exist without friends, family, and even communities. So your life is intertwined with the lives of others. Even if you go to school, your kid is going to school, you become part of that ecosystem anyway. You begin to know other parents. You begin to be engaged in the affairs of your child or children who are in school.
Yeah.
So it's a part of life. And influence, if somebody knew you were a powerful mom, even your son would be the one running around and saying, come, talk to my mom. And they'll be proud to have a mom who is influential.
Yeah.
So if your husband is influential, what would that make you?
Influential by design, because you are.
That's right. But other people would want you to be dumb and to be inconsequential and to treat you just as a mere dignified maid.
Accessory.
Yeah, when actually you have more influence, because proximity to somebody who makes decisions actually means you can shape and define the character and personality of that person.
Yeah.
And you can find ways of communicating that other people cannot get access to. Makufa Tinashe, welcome. He says Jonzo is initiating all this. You may not know who Jonzo is, but Jonzo is Professor Moyo, who is the Minister of Higher Education of Zimbabwe. So this afternoon, which is around 1:30, Dr. Mugabe, which is the wife of the president, begins her address. Dr. Mugabe, this is what was reported in the Herald. Dr. Mugabe thanks Comrade Chipanga for organizing the interfaith rallies and emphasized that the party has one center of power. Would you want to venture into interpreting what she is saying and why she is saying what she is saying? Would you want to venture into
it's trying to centralize power again, which is not the nature of how it should.
No, she's saying that she thanks the head of the Youth League for organizing the interfaith rallies. What is an interfaith?
These are the rallies that support her, yeah?
No, this is interfaith. You have two faces that are facing each other, is it?
Yeah.
So this is like an interaction between the president and the target group.
Which is the youth.
Which is the youth.
Case.
Yeah. But Grace is not a youth.
No.
But she is interfacing with the youth. And she has been introduced before they go to the husband. But there are two vice presidents sitting there who are not that bridge. So effectively, there's a recognition that there is one center of power. That center of power is what? Her husband.
The president, yes.
So that's what she's saying. That the party has one center of power. It has only one president. And I am the wife of that man. So what would that make me?
She's aligned with their power.
That I am the power. So if there's one center and I am aligned to that center, then you can't insult me without insulting the person I'm aligned to.
Yeah.
She's just laying the background there that in case there's somebody who doesn't understand what power is, that power is not only resident in the person you elect, it also manifests itself in the persons associated with it. So I can't have a rich parent, then I claim poverty or plead poverty. It will embarrass my parents.
Yeah.
So you have to be, to show up for what you are. And if you insult somebody, then there are consequences. So this, it goes then, it is worrying that the industries are closed because our youth need to feed their families. Now she's talking about in what capacity would she be saying this statement?
Well, she's making a reference to I guess the needs of the youth. She's aligning herself with the youths in this point, to show them that she's worried about their concerns.
But if she was a nobody, would she have the stature or status or locus to say those things?
No, because she wouldn't really be able to do well.
She would
Technically,
not.
she could if she was, but the way they position it as if the position she's in, is in a position to do something to help them.
So she's
As
saying
opposed
it
to-
is worrying. So she's talking as a citizen, but also as somebody who has got tentacles in government.
Yeah, the ability to do something for them.
To influence, to impact. Then I would like to talk about Professor Jonathan Moyo. It was said he has a number of crimes. President Mugabe set up a committee to investigate him. The committee had the findings and instructed Dr. Chombo to write a letter to Zach on the matter. Again, she's making a very fundamental fundamental statement. Imagine Prime Minister Trudeau and his wife. She says, I would like to talk about Tenil. It was said he has a number of crimes. The moment you say crime, it means Prime Minister cannot get involved, is it?
Yeah.
Who should be involved?
That's at the local level. So if it's crime, we're dealing with my local police department is worried about what I'm doing.
That's right.
Unless it's a federal crime. Then but even then, it's not the Prime Minister's job. It's still not. It's the job of the justice system.
It should be the same justice for everybody. Not justice for some and not justice for others. But already we are seeing here, the First Lady is saying, it was said, not it is a fact, that there are allegations.
Allegations, yeah.
Against a minister. Instead of the police doing their job or the law enforcement officers doing their job, we are now told that the president or the prime minister, in your case, set up a committee to investigate him. Which means we are already outside the four corners of the law.
Yeah.
Yeah? And that
Yeah,
this...
it's not the duty of the president, it's the duty of the Justice Department.
Yeah. This committee that has been set up actually had the findings and made a determination outside the court system and instructed the minister, who was the Minister of Home Affairs, to write a letter to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission on the matter. This letter was meant to state how this money was used. This statement is coming from the First Lady. If Jonathan is a crime, let the courts decide that. But already there is a finding and an instruction. And then the courts must then take its course. Do you see an inconsistency?
Yep. The president should never have been involved in this. This should have always been a court's issue in the first place. But they've already made some kind of decision, and now they want to say the courts must decide, which is very contradictory.
If it was in Canada...
No, this wouldn't happen in Canada.
It wouldn't. Are you sure?
Not openly anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong. Things, because we've had issues within the police departments, but to say that the prime minister gets involved with personally gets involved in criminal matters, no.
Okay. So one would assume that the separation of powers between the executive, judiciary, and the legislature, that becomes the basis of the constitutional order.
Yeah.
Where we are saying one organ of state cannot do the other side. So I can't be a law unto my own cause. I can't be the judge unto my own actions. It means whatever it is, the moment that the First Lady has taken a view and the president has taken a view and a committee has been set up, it means already the executive is doing the functions of the of the courts. It means there's no more separation. Please don't use your position to fight your wars, the First Lady says. What she is saying is that there are people in government who are constructively using their positions to create crime where there is no crime. And therefore, this is an abuse of state power. That's what essentially she's saying. I am the First Lady. I have never used my position to gain an unfair advantage. That's what she is saying. That if I am not using my position to obtain unfair advantage, then everybody else should be subject to the same thing. Yet in the same narrative, she's actually saying Professor Moyo must not be subjected to the same standards that other people who are accused of anything are having to deal with daily in their own lives.
Yeah.
So there's an issue of whether there's equal treatment before the law or whether there's selective application of the law, where other people become subjected to different standards, or whether the law applies generally to all.
Yeah.
What is the situation in Canada?
Well, the law, everybody, the law does apply to all. There is no, this stepping in of the prime minister and stuff would not be, unless these were like federal issues, say terrorism. You know, there's always concerns about terrorism, and because those are national concerns. Right? And other than that, we won't be finding the prime minister coming in terms of crime. Right, that's the justice system. The justice system will take care of that at the different levels, and it will be depending on what the crime is, whether it's a local crime, or municipality, or provincial. That is how it will be handled, right? So at the level of the crime. When it comes to federal stuff, it's really issues like terrorism, right? Terrorism, treason, that and the like.
Okay.
So that's the nature of what he was accused. I'm kind of confused as to why the president was getting involved.
And welcome, Grace, from Atlanta. And she says, what's up? Where is everyone? We are all here. If you want to join, you can always join. So there is grace, not the grace that we are talking about, but another grace. Henry Musikawan says, I'm watching. Okay, I always like people who watch and say nothing. That's how the West was won. Always. So he says, okay, unfair advantage is where you jump the queue. And Miriam Pfeiffer, she's also watching. So let's go ahead. It says, Amai Mugabe says she's aware that some elements were paid money to Buye as she speaks. And she doesn't care if they are to do that. This is now her words. I don't care whether you boo me or you were paid to boo me, but I will say it as it is. Even if you bring soldiers with guns, I will say the same thing. What is your take on that?
She's not afraid, but I think also the idea that people were paid to boo her, and that she knows this, it's all a spin, because how would she know for sure that they were paid? She's basically disregarding whatever negative response she might be getting, right, to say that it's just those whatever opposers, as opposed to people
she's saying that
agree.
She is aware. She's got information that some people were paid money to boo her. So she's acknowledging that in the party there are people who doesn't like her. And there are people who are organizing or conspiring to undermine her position, reputation, and authority. So she's acknowledging that if they are booing me and not booing my husband, then it means that actually they are saying something about my husband. Why would you boo me and then you love my husband? So she then says, stop it, whatever you are doing. This is the message to the booers and the pairs of the booing.
Yeah, the pairs of the booing.
And then she's saying that I'm not afraid of you. Come out in the open. Let's have a bare knuckle fight. But don't hide behind other people. So she's throwing what you can call the gauntlet. She's saying, my friend, I know what you're doing. Stop it. If you are my friend, hear me. If you are not my friend, then there are consequences.
But there's also a psychological element to her saying that.
Okay.
Because what she is then reinforcing to those that support her, right? That those that do not, that are booing, because I'm assuming this is in a situation where she's getting booed, right?
Yeah.
That those people who are booing are basically imposters, right? So she reinforces to those that support her that it's not because of what I'm saying, it's because these people are imposters.
No, she's saying that I have certain intelligence about the enterprise of booing. That is not natural. It's actually engineered.
Engineered,
yeah.
Right, and so therefore those who support her, right, will then take it in that what she's saying makes sense, and that these people that are now opposing by booing what she's saying are doing it because they are imposters paid by whatever.
She's saying this in front of her husband, who is the president, who is the center of power. That my husband, you may not know what is happening in your party. There are people who are being paid by your own people to boo your own wife. So if they are booing me in front of you, then surely there's a problem. And who must fix that problem? It's you, my husband.
Yeah, the president.
Yeah, the president. That you can't allow these people to boo me and get away with it.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah? Because I can't be married to a person who is so powerful but is booed.
Yeah.
And people have the courage and temerity to boo me. And you are smiling at these people. So when you are in a relationship with somebody How do you lobby? How do you make your husband angry? How do you make your mother angry if somebody has played mischief on you at school?
You tell on them. You start telling.
You start telling. And say, my friend, what were you doing with my son yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you start knowing the tactics and tricks of getting someone worked up. This is the president who has not spoken yet. He is being worked on. Farai Marquis says, it's a family affair. Honestly, we cannot allow this to become politics. But have you discovered that relationships actually are more critical than offices? That in any situation, any human situation, there will always be this connection between people.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the connection that is family, because you can't extract yourself easily and just wake up one day and say, I don't like you. So by nature, power itself occurs within the human setting. Do you agree?
Yeah.
That you can't have power in the abstract, where Farai says we cannot allow this to become politics, when in fact it is politics to have a family. That I cannot say I don't like Trump's wife, but I like Trump. I think right now they are traveling together. They were in Hawaii. They are going to Japan and whatever. But he's traveling with his wife. So while they're traveling, if the wife doesn't like you, how long do you think you will last?
Especially with Trump, not very long.
With anybody. Because you have influence to spin your version. The other person may not have the same access to spin or counter spin. So already you see the power balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't see it, anticipate it, manage it, then you take the academic view of power. That I elected the president, therefore the president must divorce his wife for him to be loyal to me. Then you are missing the boat. So there were demonstrations to fire Kasukwere, but President Mugabe saw that there was no crime. So the moment you say crime, the president cannot be part of what? That adjudication. Is that correct?
Yeah, not unless it's federal and a matter of national security.
No, even if it's federal, the president has no room to have an opinion on crime. Huh? Yeah. It is only the courts who can determine. Is that the system in Canada?
Yeah.
That it has to be.
The justice system takes care of, deals with all of that stuff. And if anything, if the court if the president ever has a say, it's not direct that he can say something. There's a whole system that has to go pass through.
He is precluded from having a say.
Yeah.
Yeah? Because the president cannot have a say about an allegation that must be processed in the ordinary course of processing any other allegation. Because this is an allegation, I can't say there is no crime, because I am not empowered to make that determination. And the president may not have the full facts for him to sit as a presiding officer. So the Zimbabwe that you want, could it be the Zimbabwe where the president can be the adjudicator of crime? Or a Zimbabwe where the system is open to everybody and all allegations are processed in the ordinary course of life? What kind of Zimbabwe would you want to see? That's a question to you.
Oh, well, I mean, the government should have its branches, right? Its executives, which is where the president would sit, the legislative and the judiciary. They each have their duties to perform on behalf of the country. So Zimbabwe, the president getting involved in issues related to the justice system when he's got that's not his role. He shouldn't, be making decisions, I would say, in proxy of the justice system.
So you're saying the Zimbabwe that you want to see is a Zimbabwe where the rule of law is allowed to take precedence?
No, that it's separate. The judicial system should take precedent in matters to be related to crime.
So you are saying that they should not be executive.
Those three branches, right? There should be those three branches: the executive, legislation, right?
Yeah.
And the judicial.
Okay. Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah. So you are saying that those are the fundamental tenets of the rule of law, that you must have a separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
So Farai says, so we are heading to be a family-run state. It's about the people, not family interest. It's not democracy, what's happening then. We are heading to be like North Korea, scary. But
it actually is scary. I mean, more on the gossip side of things. There was, when was it, last month, 2 months ago, where there was the issue in South Africa with I guess the first children, with the sons, where apparently the first lady was saying that that almost as if the president's heirs were I guess were in danger, whatever the hell the situation was. But it seems as if they seem to have this idea that the power is going to stay within the family. Right, so whether it passes on from him to the first lady, and then from the first lady to their kids, it's almost like they take more of a monarchy, approach. Like, he's not president, he's king, or at least it seems as if that's what the first family seems to think is going on.
No, it's also not a question. I mean, she has already set out the case that there is one center of power. So whether you go through the judiciary, you go to the legislature, there is one center. But in a normal democratic system,
it's not like that.
There are checks and balances.
Yeah.
It won't be one center of power.
No, they're separated.
They are separated. And they are all equal. Or should be equal. But in the narrative that is now Zimbabwe, that separation has become so blared. There's a new reality of one center of power. So if the president says you are innocent, then you are innocent.
Yeah.
If he says you are guilty, then you are guilty as charged.
Guilty. Yeah.
Because he has his own system of determining who is guilty and who is innocent. But the presumption of innocence is reserved for all.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not enough to make an allegation, but you have the honors to prove the allegation. Before
innocent until proven guilty.
Before an independent tribunal, Because I can't go to somebody who I work for, who is my president, to say, can you check my facts, whether I'm guilty or not? Then it becomes unfair, even to the president, to say, President, can you be the adjudicator of a dispute? So it means we have ourselves, this is 37 years after independence. One would expect to have a shared understanding of the address of power and who should have it, who shouldn't have it.
But I think, especially given how things have run recently, right? Even those with education we have an idea as to the way it works, but when it's not the way it's being practiced, it seems to go into contradiction to the way things are actually working, right? So it's almost as if there's an unofficial, because it claims to be a democratic state,
okay,
and yet the way it's operating is not, right? So even those that are being educated in terms of how it should be operating maybe seem helpless in terms of how they can ensure that it is operated, properly.
No,
because anyone that understands even the basics of political structure would see a fault in what's going on, right? But nobody seems to be doing anything.
But what address would you go to learn about this separation of powers? Because in the ordinary course of life, you are just worried about just making ends meet.
Ends meet, exactly.
You are not too worried about the matters of state, even analyzing who is saying what, who is not saying what. You just read the headlines and you carry on with what you have to do.
And you move on with your life, yeah. And this is why,
you move on with your life. Why would you bother? And burden your mind with all these sophistications of governmental power, mischief, abuse of it. Ordinarily, you will be just saying, look, that's none of my business.
Well, that's the way it works.
That's the way it works, and the president is the power. The president has all the final say. Even while the president was sitting there, he couldn't even correct and say, look, I don't have the power to determine who is guilty or not.
Yeah.
So my wife, I love you. But that's where it ends. I am a servant of the people. I can't be elected and then end up becoming the judge.
Yeah.
I am not in that position. My job is actually means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that opportunity is never there because we also don't know how to deal with some of these issues. Yeah. So it then becomes personal rather than institutional, because our relationship with the institution called government or the office of the president or prime minister is not as developed, because when we are growing up, we grow up on the rough side of the mountain. We never know what actually takes place in State House.
Yeah.
And the people who live there, they make it so sophisticated that actually they become the law themselves.
Yeah.
So Elder Paradzai Mugabazi, welcome. Simba Ruanza, welcome. Antonio Muvunde, welcome. So this is the tragedy that we actually don't know. You may live in Canada without even knowing where Ottawa is. You may end up just living in Toronto, but knowing the place that needs your attention. So you move from point A to point B. But people who are here, they believe that you know the whole of Canada.
Yeah. Right.
And yet the Canada that you know is just a few streets.
But it's also, and that's the thing, because these other, like, say the outreach places. So okay, so Canada's got these. Toronto has its small towns, right? If their only exposure to say how the system works is what is being coming is what is people are coming to tell them, and the reality is the only time, well, for the most part, people really start talking about the political situation is when it's election time and everyone's going out there and telling them to support whichever party or whatever the case may be. But they never get a chance to really understand, right, what the roles are, or even what they can do. Right? And I think once people get into the state of learned helplessness, where they think it is what it is, and so it's pointless even trying to make a difference, right? They accept things as they are. And so when now those in power, or the wife of those in power, are telling them that, look, we make all the rules, right? We make all the decisions. Because they're in the state of learned helplessness, they don't even have, they don't feel themselves or understand or know that they have the power to reject that.
They have the inherent power to say it is our power that creates government.
And it's like they're unaware of it. Right?
That's what you find. It's universal. It's not just a Zimbabwean situation.
Yeah.
It's actually
that is
a universal thing that in our communities we actually feel helpless or expect somebody to fix the problem.
Yes, and that's
And we assume that when the First Lady is saying this, she actually knows what we know.
Yeah.
And yet she may also believe that there is one center of power means all the roads lead to State House. And nobody has told you, no, hang on. This is how the design of government is.
Yeah, no one's correcting her. So and the problem is the more that she says this stuff, right, without being opposed, the more it becomes accepted as that's what it is. Right?
Precisely. But even the vice president who is being shoved, he also has been a practitioner in this kind of nonsense where he would defer to the president on matters that have nothing to do with the president.
Yeah.
So this is where we have. So we have Henry Musikawanu. He says, I think she acknowledges that the clear message now is bigger than it appears. Surely people have always been given money as a bribe to woo candidates, to woo candidates, supporters. Is not that she may be saying something deeper. She is saying, I am being humiliated. There are people who are being paid to humiliate the wife of that sender. This center of power, the one center of power, is my husband. Understand the framework. If it's my husband, how can the people who report to him then pay people to humiliate me? Then after humiliating me, what is it that they want? What is the cause of action? What is the next step after they humiliate me? And surely should we allow this kind of enterprise where people get paid to humiliate the wife of that single most important person, the first citizen of the country, unless they're saying something about my marriage? Because if I was not married to this man, my name will not be an important variable in anything. Yeah. Now that I'm married, all of a sudden, I become a persona non grata. I become an enemy of people I don't even know. So this is Henry, that's the framework that informs perhaps what the First Lady is saying. That my husband, yeah, this is what is going on without your knowledge and consent. I am already a victim. Then Farai says, political party and officials need to make the president accountable. How do they make a president accountable when they are also afraid to lose their positions? The party elects the leader. The party cannot elect a leader. The individuals do. You know, people assume that the party has got a voice, has got feelings. But the party itself is just a construct of humans. We can create a party of two. We call it marriage, is it?
Yeah, marriage.
Yeah, that's a union.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's a union of people, then it means we have come together because we share a common purpose. And it is us who elect one of us to be an office bearer. But sometimes once you elect somebody, it's very difficult to remove them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so easy to take the cars. Imagine you give your son a phone. It's very difficult to take it back. You actually forfeit it.
Yeah.
Because actually people abandon someone in government and say, perhaps it's his government, let him continue. Perhaps it's his car without knowing that the car belongs to you.
Yeah.
And when the person is moving around with a borrowed car, they never say it's borrowed. They actually believe that they've earned it. Okay. And somebody is asking, there are questions that are flying now. Okay, there's we vote our leaders into government, then they must make politicians accountable. It's very difficult to make people accountable because once they assume positions of influence, other people want the influence. Have you ever seen good meat? Have you ever seen what happens when you have good meat? Hello? They must also make all other MPs and government accountable if corrupt or if not doing things that align with our constitution. You may find that actually people in government are very difficult to supervise because we actually don't know what they do. We assume we know what the president does. But nobody actually tells us what they actually do. So we must start maybe a program. What does the day of a president look like? Does he wake up? Does he bath? Does he have breakfast? And while he's having breakfast, then what happens? Huh? And if he goes to the toilet, what happens while he's in the toilet? Does it? What can he do while he's imprisoned in a toilet? So just to understand, to humanize this office, because there are people who think they're accountable, but people create a lot of sophistication, mystery. Other people go to university saying, I want to be a president. And they say, but why are you so energetic to be something that you don't even know what it entails? So how do we get this human side of government? Maybe Grace is giving us a new twist into civic affairs. Maybe we can have a citizen university just for people to understand their rights and obligations. Then Lord Mo Karanda said, what do you think of Mnangagwa's fate? I think we'll go to what the First Lady said, not what I think, because she may be operating with a little bit more information than we all are operating with about what is happening. So it says, First Lady Amai Mugabe says Vice President Mnangagwa is, what does he say there?
First, he says Vice President Mnangagwa is the root cause of factionalism.
Yeah. So she's...
And it's high time.
She's yeah, maybe before we go further, she's stating as fact. She's not alleging. If she was alleging, what would she need to say? She would say,
alleged to be.
First Lady Amai Mugabe says Vice President is the root cause of factionalism. She has passed the stage where this is a hypothesis.
Yeah.
This is stated as fact and true.
It's fact.
And it's high time he is taken to a disciplinary hearing. So she's already says there is a basis, there is a factual basis to hold Vice President Mnangagwa to a disciplinary committee. She is not saying whether she's a complainant, but she is saying it's fact. So my husband here and the people all over the world here that the root cause of factionalism is Vice President Mnangagwa. And it's high time, because this has been brewing for a long time. And she then says, I am leading the cause. So many people have been fired, she says. So she's saying, I am the champion of this cause. The constitution was changed from requiring one of the VPs to be a female when Joyce Mujuru left. And we put Mnangagwa. We, not he. Now we want our position back. So we appointed you, not my husband appointed you.
Yep.
And therefore, we want our position back. So Lord Mo Karanda, if you have ears and you have eyes, your question must be answered. Then pure pare nopi, Mawere, don't you see that Grace is running Zimbabwe? I don't know what running Zimbabwe is, because Zimbabwe to me is too big. I've tried even to drive across Zimbabwe. I gave up. What I know of Zimbabwe is so small, so insignificant, that I cannot claim to know what Zimbabwe is, even if I was born there. So I don't really know what running is. But if you are saying, does she have influence on her husband, or the power to shape and determine his worldview, his narrative, I think there is no doubt. She's even saying, we appointed Mnangagwa. Now we want to disappoint him.
Yeah, take the job back.
Take the job back. She can only say that if she knows where she stands in this arrangement. Do you think we now have a monarch in Zimbabwe? No, they both are saying the elections are coming 2018. And even the king of Swaziland doesn't get elected. Her Majesty, the Queen of England, does not go for elections. So it's not a monarch yet. When we decide that the president must not be elected, He must be a life president. Then you can say Zimbabwe is now a monarch. What the First Lady is saying to you is that if you love Zimbabwe so much, offer your different version. But within ZANU, there's 1% of power. And this is now encroached into government, where she says, if the president says you are innocent, you are innocent. Tawanda Chikower, why doing all these rallies just to fire him? Mnangagwa period. No, he's saying that when you have one man that you all look up to, like I think you would agree that if you are in a family of 5 and you are playing mischief, your other siblings can be the whistleblowers. You may not have all the facts, and you may end up favoring the one who is more mischievous. So the other siblings will be the one reporting you to say why you treat her as an angel. She is not. So the First Lady is just saying to the husband, who may not know all these shenanigans about booing, about paying people, because he lives in this world of make-believe. He has no opportunity of knowing what fresh air looks like or smells like. Imagine to know you a president. Huh?
Yeah.
Whatever you do, somebody has to be a witness, is it?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no minute that you can say it's my minute. Just to say, I just want to relax.
No.
So this person is like a glorified prisoner. So he knows the world through other people. So these rallies are important for him. And he can also be choreographed to say the things that he must say. So people look forward to these rallies because they reveal more. Otherwise, on his own, he can be bamboozled. Yeah. And the other part may also give another twist to say, I'm not a factional leader. I love you so much. How can I even think of betraying you? How many marriages have been kept by lying, reverse lying? So life itself, understand, it's not as easy as a straight line. So President Mugabe is also learning more through these rallies, through his wife. Yes, Farai says, yes, we need a transparency in government and their activities, I agree. But needing transparency is not having it. Needing accountability is not having accountability. You need to be more vigilant.
Would you say it's fair, then, that one of the reasons this continues is because people, like the average person, doesn't understand how it's supposed to go? And if they themselves were more involved at their own personal level, right, they would learn what it is to actually run and then be able to notice that what is happening from this center of power is not how it should be happening.
Yeah,
because
that's
again, at this point in time, it's been going on for so long,
but that
people just how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, requires knowledge. But if you were not talking to me, would you even know what was said today?
No.
Yeah. So there are many people who are genuinely disconnected and who just don't know. Some they want to know, but they don't know where to go. Because in social media, there's a lot of clutter.
Yeah.
A lot of things that are shared every day. Some of them you can't make head or tail.
Yeah.
So where do you get wisdom? There is no address where we can say, I'm learning something.
Yeah.
So if there's no address, accept that most of the things that we take for granted actually are not what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. And that's universal. That's universal.
That's universal. So we all suffer from the same problem. Lord Mokaranda said she has demanded to have the slot for a female VP back at the Congress alongside the Ndebele VP. Lord Mo, you are correct. So they are saying Mnangagwa's term ends at the Congress. After that, that seat belongs to women. And that's the end of the story. Ruramai Mash says, better late than never. Then Farai Magui says, Ano zinyadzisa, that Grace is allowed to act and behave like such. I'm not sure. She may be just saying, this, I am the wife. Get over that fact. If you've got a problem with it, get over it.
But she's saying more than that, though. She's not only saying I'm the wife, but she is consistently reinforcing this idea that the power is centralized.
Yeah, she's saying that. She's saying I married the man, the champion, and that's not your husband. So shut up, stop it. She's not mincing her words. Then Lord Moses, are you going to be involved in the 2018 elections, Mr. Mawere? I'm not sure. I'm already involved by sharing with you so that I can ignite you to jump around and say, not in my name. I want to get involved in this project because it's your country. Don't replace Mugabe with another Mugabe. So please be vigilant. When the First Lady says this, please find a polite way of taking the issues to her. She may not know what you know. That a government belongs to the people. It is their project. So read carefully what is being said. So don't worry about me, the person. Worry about what you are not doing. And then there is Margaret says it has become autocracy directed when they did that deal with Tsvangirai in 2008. That Mugabe is president, Tsvangirai prime minister, that was wrong. He should have just stepped down. It became clear that Mugabe thinks he's similar to a queen or king. I don't think Mugabe thinks that way. Mugabe thinks, he says, I am a Democrat and my people love me. And you may not agree with him. But he has no reason to doubt that people love him after 37 years. Even after 37 years of marriage. So now, would you say your husband doesn't love you?
If it was that long, that's love. But no, but you know what? With Mugabe himself understands democracy, right?
Yeah.
And he believes people love him and they keep. But I do think that his wife doesn't. That she is viewing this as if they are entitled to this position.
No,
and that she's next in line, so to speak, right? And that's not a democracy situation. She'd have to be voted in, right? But it seems as if she's taken it for, it's either she's faking it till she makes it, one of those where, you know, if you put it out there, it'll happen, or she really thinks as if she's next in line, right? As if it's
but what if she genuinely loves her husband?
I mean, you know, there's that too.
And she's just saying, guys, it's unfair. Why should I be excluded? If there's power and there's meat, I told you what happens when you have good meat. You get flies, isn't it? So he's saying, why should we get other flies when I can also come after the meat? Why should I be excluded? from partaking. Since people don't like me anyway, maybe that's the reason why I need to be there. If people are going to boo me, now they see who I am and what I'm made of. He thinks he's entitled, that the country is his playground. He says, no. What if Mugabe says to you that I have never cheated an election, my people love me?
And that's possible too. It seems like there is a lot of support for him, especially given, again, that they see Mugabe as a liberator, right?
Yeah.
He freed Zimbabwe, and so he does have a lot of genuine support. It does exist. It's just what's troubling is that it seems as if his wife is clutching onto his platform of support and they're trying to make it hers.
No, it's on the contrary. The wife is giving you a different narrative. And we have to understand her first as a human being independent of Mugabe. Because she's a person in her own right, with her aspirations, her own fears, her own anxieties. So we cannot group people and average them and say 1 plus 1 is 2. Even if they share the same bed.
But you do see that's what she's trying to do, because even, okay, taken as her own, right, as an individual, the qualities that she's displaying aren't qualities that are really often appropriate for a leader. I mean, some of the things that she has done, you would never ever hear of anybody in politics, never mind a woman in politics, but going and doing some of the things that she's doing, like even in her personal life, right? Or at least, do it very secretly, you know what I mean? But going and beating up people, all of that stuff is those are not qualities of a good leader.
Yeah.
So even herself as an individual, so she's trying to average.
She is herself. She has her own mind. And we are seeing her own mind. Her own mind is saying there's one center of power. And I don't understand, if we all agree that there's one center of power, why somebody would want to boo me when I'm part of that center?
Again, she's trying to average, like you said. She's trying to average the power.
No, she's not averaging. She says, my husband is the power. And if he loves me, and he has not filed divorce papers, who are you?
Yeah.
Who the hell are you to break this union?
Yeah.
That only death will break. And the opposition failed to get the reins to completely take over leadership. No, Mugabe has never been asleep for 37 years. He has always been looking up for himself. Milna Chaka, welcome. Tawanda Chikoere, now he has full information. Why waiting for Congress to fire Mnangagwa? Mnangagwa was not elected the Congress, if I'm not mistaken. Mugabe is also a client of the wife. We used to say the only way you can eat chicken is when you have visitors. So when we were growing up, we always prayed for visitors. I don't know whether you know that feeling. Because when a visitor comes, you get the best. So sometimes you can use visitors to negotiate even with your husband. Is that correct, Tenel?
No.
Because if your friends validate, imagine you see a nice guy. You tell your friend, is that correct?
Yes. Always.
Yeah, and say, let's go out to dinner together.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are negotiating.
Yeah.
If your friend says he's a jolly good fellow, he's a nice guy, what have you been waiting for? What would you say?
Like, okay.
Okay, why not? Meanwhile, you don't know there's a nightmare there. So right now, the wife could be negotiating with her husband. Because Mugabe is not convinced yet.
Yeah.
So this rally is about warming him up so that he can get to where he can make that decision. But the decision is already made not by Mugabe, by the people who benefit from that decision. Because Mugabe doesn't benefit from whoever is his deputy. Would he? Yeah? Would he benefit?
Anyway.
If I'm driving a car, whether I got 3 passengers or 5 passengers, does it make a difference?
Yeah. But that's the thing, though, because it is being treated as if he is driving the car.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, there's supposed to be other parts at work. You know what I mean? He can't do everything by himself, but it seems to be, people seem to have this impression that he does, that he's got all the power to make all the decisions about everything that's happening, which is not the way it should be.
Yeah, but for the people who benefit, they would like to present him as Mr. Know-It-All.
That's because they're benefiting. They're getting that right.
They have to. If I was closer to you, I will make you believe you are closer to God. Only to get what I want.
Yeah.
But I have no interest in you. What I have interest is what? Is the power that I presume you hold.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the end of the... So Rabson Tamilepi says, you are right, there's too much clutter in the social media. Love Moka Karanda says, do you think giving back the farms to evicted farmers will revive the Zimbabwean economy? What do you think?
Honestly, not necessarily. What Zimbabweans need is education. Those farms, they fell to ruin not because the farmers were evicted, but because those who were left did not know what to do with them. So if there was a way that people could be educated in how to really do, because really and truly, what they were doing can be replicated and done, but they were left with no means of knowing. And that's how I guess people that want to hold on to power make sure that they know everything and others do not, right? So being removed from the situation, they left the people that were left behind not knowing.
Okay.
So if there was a way instead, right, to empower the people that remain to make use of these farms, that would help to revive the economy.
Okay.
I think education more than anything else will help to revive the economy. Teaching people what to do, how to do it.
I think that question, Lord Moore, yes, it's a big question and requiring thought. When you look at a country like United States, it's the idea where the genius is. It's not the implementation. What is the idea that will attract or inspire, ignite the human spirit? When you say the human spirit, it is for Tenel to leave Zimbabwe and say, I want to make Canada home. Whatever the problem she encounters there, she says, I am where my spirit is comfortable. If I were to take her to Zimbabwe today, she may not recognize the Zimbabwe she grew up in. She may actually not even survive one day. Because what she's now accustomed to is completely different from how she grew up. So the human spirit is so complex. But what ideas work? The moment I say property is a commodity, I will lose anyway, because money itself is a product of effort. Money is a visitor. If you work hard and you create value, you make a difference to other people's lives, you get what you want in life. And this idea that I can take a farm and I become the substitute for the creator. And I can administratively say, this is not your land, this is your land, and that I'm restoring what was damaged by men, that the purpose of life was to give land to blacks. But if the Creator wanted land for blacks only, he would have made it impossible for whites to use it. They would not have even have arrived in Africa. They would have perished on their way. But land itself is an object that is created common to all. But land that produces something is not land anymore. It's value. When you fence it and get it and do something on land, build structures on it, it's no longer land. It's now an object of value, which is property. The moment I take property from you, arbitrarily, unilaterally, it has consequence. Those consequences can live with us for a long time. That idea that I can take this and put it back, that idea is what causes nations to fail, or the people in those nations to be helpless. The rule of law, the things that we're talking about, what the First Lady is saying, that actually the president is a tribunal, that the president can make a determination whether I'm guilty or not, that a disciplinary committee of the party can substitute what the government ought to do in the name of the people. That idea alone will not bring investment. So it is important that we understand what this is all about when we say government and public office bearers. What do we mean?
But at the same time, I mean, for example, one of the reasons that Mugabe remains having support, as much as I'm sure the people at home are everything is tough because of all the support that was lost from the West and the like. In terms of many other Africans here overseas, right? They very much respect the ideologies that Mugabe set forward at the time that he was, even with the land reclamations and the like, right? Because colonialism did a number on the whole world, right? In Zimbabwe included. And while things were thriving and wonderful and great under colonial rule, as compared to how they may be now, the reality is the only way that system was able to maintain the way that they did was really by restricting access to education, among many things, right? You were allowed to know so much, but you couldn't become self-sufficient. Now, for the people of Zimbabwe, and the people of Zimbabwe are of all colors, they're not only, black Zimbabweans, whites, but the majority is still black Zimbabweans, right? For the people of Zimbabwe to really have their own power, they need to build their own power. It's a rich country. It's a country that's full of mineral resources. It's just that people don't know what to do with it. And yes, things can get moving faster with outside investors, absolutely. Right? They will have the money to come in and start building stuff or start getting things operating. This is absolutely true. But sooner or later, we'll end up back in the place where we're colonized again, essentially.
Okay.
So there has to be some way of building up the people of Zimbabwe.
So I think that's one issue that we need to touch. I think a lot more agree. It's not just getting back the land. Actually, we have to think, what kind of Zimbabwe do we want to see? How should it be governed? Do we need a country where there's one center of power, which is what the First Lady and people in ZANU-PF are saying, that there should always be one center of power, and that center must be one person. What can one person do in the scheme of things? Do you think one man can conquer the world?
Nope.
Or that we are just too human to appreciate?
They don't even have one man to run a company. Never mind a country.
That's right. So we need to have maybe an exploration of ideas and a thinking that maybe we have not invested in so far. So what is it that we need to do? We need maybe to look at countries like Canada. What is so special about Canada that you'd want to be in Canada, not in Zimbabwe? Because no one forces you to be there.
No. And by no means is living overseas easy, right? But the truth of the matter is that there is opportunity here if you're willing to work, right? And that's at every level. You can get a say. And so for example, in issues of government, everything is localized. And when I say localized, I mean localized all the way down to your child's school. Okay, so for example, myself, I've got a 13-year-old. I'm parent council chair at his school, right?
Yeah.
I'm also involved. So the school is part of a school board. So
Yeah.
you've got the district, right? I'm also involved at the school board. So now once you're involved at the school board, then we've got a trustee for this board, right? So, and then from the trustee of the board, now we move to the municipality. Most people that get into politics here, truthfully, start more or less where I am, right? And so then by the time you're coming up to the part where you want to be running for prime minister, let's say, you
Yeah.
have got years of experience in actual politics, in learning how to make small systems work and then expand and then expand and then expand.
Yeah.
But none of these systems can work without the input of the input and the work of the local people. And not just, for example, here, there's the middle class and there's the people that are more well off and there's the low income families, right? If everything ran just off of, the people that show up at the meetings, then we'd only be catering to the needs of the middle class. The needs of the low income people would never be met because they very rarely are able to come to meetings because they're busy working 2, 3, 4 jobs just to survive. Right? So ultimately, we need grassroots kind of activity. We need people that are going
You
in
need
and meeting them.
active citizenship.
Active citizenship, 100%. And active citizenship at every level, like from the smallest group, from your little neighborhood that you live in.
Yeah.
Right? So if you live in, I don't know, I used to live in Greystone Park when I was at home. So you live in Greystone Park.
Yeah.
You from that, right? Then you're going to move up, okay, now Borrowdale. Then you're going to move, okay, Harare. Right? That's it. You need to be active from the small, like there's no such thing as too small when being active. Because the more that you build up steam, and again, it's not only politics, it's really what differences can you make in your community? What needs to be changed in your community? And then if you find systems that work for you, will these systems work in other communities? They may not, right? But that's how it starts. But the problem is too many people are just comfortable accepting the status quo.
That's
right?
where
Expecting everything done by the government.
and they defer to others. They think other people will solve the problem.
Exactly. So if you look at yourself, look at your community right now, your neighborhood. What can you solve in your neighborhood? How can you get started in organizing stuff? What kind of groups can you get together? And then from there, you take your concerns to, who do you take your concerns to? If now as a group you've decided that there's a problem that needs to be dealt with here, who do you go to? You're not going to the president, right? There's got to be someone above you somewhere that can be dealing with what you're dealing, and so on and so forth. It goes bigger.
Yeah.
Small change. Basically compounds, like money, interest.
That's right. So you start in your community. I think even Grace has identified a problem, and all she's saying is, "Let me fix it." I see there are people who want to finish me, so I'll finish them before they finish me. So she has identified a problem. Even if you are in a community, you identify a problem, solve it. And life is about problem solving. And
Absolutely. And honestly, and problem solving also empowers not only yourself, but it will empower your community. And that is what elicits change. It's that empowerment. Like I said, many people, I believe, are suffering from this learned helplessness. And again, this is a universal concept, right? It's not just the people in Zimbabwe. We see it right here in Canada, right? There's many people that are living, low-income people, and they're living in a state of learned helplessness, where you feel like everything that is not working is happening to you. And often, the same way as you defer responsibility, you also defer blame. Right? It's the blame of the government. It's the fault of the government that these things aren't working. And to a degree, it might be true. But to another degree, you don't sit there and wait for them to fix it. Right? You try and find out how you can fix it in whatever way that you can. right? Just small things. You build on the strengths within your community, and then you'll find people become empowered. And people who become empowered, they manage to get out of the state of learned helplessness. And once you get out of that state of learned helplessness and you start to see change happening, then we can see it on a broader scale. But most people just keep their heads buried in the sand.
That's the, yeah. Then Parenopi says, Grace must fight to win. If she failed, she knows that the fall of Mugabe is the fall of her too. I think that would be self-evident to everybody. That it doesn't require a genius to know that. So you better fight when you are strong. You better prepare for peace when it's war. And you better prepare for war when it's peace. Farai Margu says, let's just look at the facts. He has been in power for 37 years. I think we should say he has been presumed to be in power for 37 years. He is 94. He is no longer fit to lead. Did he ever lead? What is leading? People think leading is being energetic and being young, when leading may not be any of the above. Hence, his wife can act so naively and be allowed so much power with her naivety. It's not naive to be married to a powerful man and sustain the marriage for that length of time. So let's not limit other people's capacity to influence, capacity to bring change. You may discover that Grace is bringing more change than many men can bring. She's actually changing the way things are done. There are people who want Zimbabwe to be controlled in perpetuity by so-called war veterans. They want strong men. And Grace is decimating the strong people. And all these people who are around Mugabe can't talk like Grace. They all are schmoozing each other. They are all loving each other. And the country is going nowhere. And she's saying, I don't care about the protocol. I just say what it is, what is in my mind. And isn't it refreshing for people just to vocalize what they think? If I don't like you, I don't have to pretend in front of you. Yeah, that spirit of rebellion, that I know my husband likes you guys, and you lie to him every day. But it's Grace time. It's Grace time to talk. When you say what time it is, she says no time for bullshit. Which side are you on? And she is doing what many people have failed to do, to break up ZANU-PF into pieces, where the center cannot hold, and she's doing it so efficiently and eloquently and so, what other word can you use? That there are people who thought they were untouchable. And today they are not sleeping because of a woman they thought was a dignified maid.
Yeah.
Not knowing that she's lethal, got political voltage. So there are two sides to it. Which man for 37 years, Mugabe has never had any. These war veterans are trying to get him back to 1975 and regroup around 1975 when most people were not born. And say, this is the future that we want. That is got a rear view mirror. Well, let's go back to yesteryears. So, Phil Mbata, welcome. Farai Magu says investment was there, but corruption and mismanagement deterred investors and economic growth. I think now you agree that corruption is a human phenomenon.
It's everywhere.
Wherever you have human beings,
there's corruption.
there is some relationships, some dishonesty. And if all men were honest, how many marriages would be intact? So the life is not how many people want other people to be honest, but individually they are dishonest.
Yeah.
The relationship between them and the reality of honesty is not there. So let's try to find the human side of it. But investment follows good ideas. If we recognize the market system, what the first lady, we didn't finish reading, what she is saying must worry you. Because what she's saying is that my husband is the center of power, and therefore there must not be any rule of law. If she's saying that, you must be concerned. But we must confirm with her, what exactly is she saying that her husband said there was no crime? What would give you that right? Imagine you have invested $1 billion in Zimbabwe. Then someone plays mischief. Then you go to the head of state and say, I've investigated the matter and I find there's no crime. Would you be comfortable? Encourage other people to come there? So Keith says anyone can be a farmer. New farmers need education and well-running agri extension, research, marketing services, as well as sound financing. And government should play a key role in this regard. And the system of property rights should be credible and predictable. Milner says, most of the guys who got farms wanted houses. It would have been cheaper if we had chased whites who lived in low-density suburbs. Do you know the difference between supporters and beneficiaries? Then Tawanda Shikower, if there is one center of power, why bring this issue every time? This shows that the president no longer is in control over everything. No, the center of power, they are bringing it. That you can't have a big elephant and a small elephant in the same room. That if you belong in this pyramid, you must respect your gravitas, your center of gravity. And that's Mugabe. So you can't be in Mugabe, in ZANU-PF, and not appreciate who is the driver of that ship. Farai, the government puts barriers in place to prevent growth. The global economy today is all about multicultural trade of goods in an ever-changing environment. For example, in the last 5 years, China suddenly became the world's largest economy, consumer of red wine. We need to make the most of our resources, create products and services to export, allow project development, wealth for all. Problem is when you try to limit wealth to one group, race or tribe. That's Farai. The International Pacific, welcome. Farai Makwi, more important than problem solve is decision making. We need to elect a government that makes the correct decisions. Do you elect a government in Canada?
You actually elect your local representative, right? So, for example,
you
in
elect
elections,
you elect people, not government.
Not people, not governments. Yeah, I mean, even the last election, I voted for my local representative of the party that I wanted to vote for as a whole.
But
okay?
you don't vote. You don't vote.
Elect people.
You elect individuals like you, who are just fallible people, who are not immortal. They're just mortal people who die, like us.
They're people. It's about having the right people, who are really working, not in the. I mean, on behalf of the people.
Yeah.
Right? The problem is that too many of the people that end up in the government are looking out for themselves and not for the people that they're supposed to be
representing. So I think that's the way it is. So I think we have interrupted you for some hours, and how we have detained you for. Let me just check how many. It should be one almost 2 hours, is it? 1 hour 45 minutes. So you see, life can be taken away from you without you noticing.
This is true.
So we have covered. Have you learned something?
Myself, I've learned a lot. This was honestly, I had no idea that this was what was being said. I've seen some things that she has said in the past, but it's usually the more outrageous things that make it viral, shall we say. But this is the kind of stuff that's more dangerous, because this is more, like, if you aren't paying attention, you're not understanding what is really going on. So it's good that these are actually being made, being put out there, so we understand what she's really saying, and again, misrepresenting the role of her own husband and her alignment with him.
And if you are watching, and we have only read one side of it. We also have Mugabe's own version when he spoke. So those people who think he's asleep will then discover that actually he knows what he's saying. Yeah. And whether he was 30 years younger, I don't think the views will be different. When he's angry, he's angry. And there's no anger that is aged. Where you say the old man is angry, then I measure anger by age. And when he's happy, he's happy. So let's not try to import age into the matters of civic affairs, because it is your government. The government does not belong to office bearers. They can be old, sleeping and tired, but you can't be tired of your own life. You can't say, I've given up. Can I die for 5 days, then I wake up again? If you are dead, you are dead. So let's avoid this tendency of thinking that a president is elected to solve our problems. No. Let's celebrate the few who get into government, because they are our servants. So whatever you've read that you don't agree with, it is important that we package it and send it back to say, firstly, tell us, how is it that people we elected to represent us have become judges? How do you mutate from a people's representative or administrator to a judge who can pronounce somebody to be guilty or innocent? If the system cannot be trusted for one, it must be discredited for all. Yeah. The moment we have these pockets of justice where some cases the president plays the judge, other cases you're on your own, nigger. You have to find your own place. That idea, if it's not corrected, the future of Zimbabwe will always be rocky. It must be our call that the signs that we see are scary enough to create anxiety, or even anxieties by all. That I don't know where I stand. if I don't have access to this one center of power, and if that one center of power doesn't like me, what should happen to me? Is it fair, just, equitable that a man of flesh would then be so gifted, so magnanimous, so efficient as to know what I'm thinking? Is that the way we want our governments to be structured, run? You know, I'm using the word run again, but I don't mean running. I just mean there must be some way of self-governing ourselves and of humanizing ourselves so that we just become what the intended purpose of life was. That we just become human, uncomplicated, unaffected by this so-called disease called power. So how do we do it? How do we organize ourselves? How do we start to interface with the people who borrow power from us? How do we make them? Because right now you may find the First Lady is feeling alone, betrayed. Because after 37 years, people have become wimps. They've become fatalistic. They've become so fearful that they cannot even say what she's able to say. Yeah? She has stood up now to be the only voice that can speak in front of these important people. Can you imagine to reduce the country where the wife of the prime minister becomes the end of it all? Huh? Can you imagine?
That is sad.
That is sad. So that's where we are in 2017. What a journey of independence.
Wow.
And we have ended here with the wife of the president being discussed by millions of people. And her speech is now the speech of all speeches. Her comments are now the comments that we have to analyze alongside her own husband.
Yeah.
And this is the tragedy of this Zimbabwe. How do we get back the power to the people in whose name governments are created? How do we do it? So I don't know whether you can spare a few more minutes to read Mugabe quickly.
I am here, yeah. I saw you post it. I'm interested in this.
Okay. So at 1400, Comrade Chipanga invites President Mugabe to give his address. 1405, President Mugabe now takes to the podium to make his address. At 1408, we are here in Bulawayo to make sure that what we do today, we encourage people in Bulawayo to vote for the party. This is the second city to Harare, and we can't afford to be losing it. But what I did not expect, which I had a bit of information about, is that some people had sent some persons to boo the first lady. This is booing my wife. That's, I didn't know. But I didn't expect it. But I had heard before. I was warned. And I never considered that warning to be valid. This is the president. Then she speaks her mind, not my mind, not our minds.
Yeah.
She speaks her mind. We cannot keep quiet. We now, not she. We know in Masvingo there are people who claim the province does not belong to President Mugabe, but to Mnangagwa. We know. He doesn't say it is alleged. He is saying that I now have some intelligence about this matter. The same is happening in Midlands. So he says there is something I know. So this is not gossip anymore. We cannot have what is happening in Masvingo and Midlands, where we are told these provinces are not President Mugabe's, but they belong to VP Mnangagwa. Belong. What does belong mean?
I was wondering from the first time that you mentioned that it's not Mugabe's but Mnangagwa's. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
It doesn't belong to anybody.
It
belongs
shouldn't.
to the people.
It shouldn't belong.
No.
But now the word belonging, that ndeyangu, vanu ndevangu, havasi vaMugabe. Yeah? That people now are owned and controlled. These are sovereign human beings who are now treated like a football, like a ball. That you can say it's my ball. And I can hit it, I can kick it. I'm told of daily in the name of Mnangagwa. I am told of, not we are told. Did I make a mistake in appointing him as VP? Now he's wondering the wisdom of picking a passenger who wants to drive his work. Have you ever been in that experience? That you have a passenger who wants to drive the car. And the only way he can drive the car is to finish you. You have never... So this...
So is that... I guess... So he's insinuating here that there's a takeover attempting to be had right now.
He's actually saying, if my own vice president that I appointed and brought into the bus, now he has a faction, now owns people who are saying in Masvingo and Midlands, this is not Mugabe time, it's not Mugabe territory. Then he's saying, maybe I made a mistake. Had I known this, would I have appointed this man? Then he goes on to say, if I made a mistake by appointing Mnangagwa, tell me. But your wife is being booed. Then you are saying if. And you are saying, the wife is saying Mnangagwa is the culprit. And he says, if I made a mistake, I will remove him now. So we learn that the president is not yet convinced. Huh?
No?
Yeah. He's saying, tell me. But the wife has already told him that this man is a snake. He ought to go to a disciplinary committee. But the husband is saying, no. We are not afraid of anyone. But the wife is saying, I'm not afraid, but I've already spilled the beans. We want our seat. This man must go. We cannot decide even here. We can decide even here. But the wife has already decided. I will stand in front and have him do the same. Those who want to be with me, join me. And those who want to be with Mnangagwa, go to him. The wife is saying, you are talking about history. This man does not like you. This man I told you he had paid people to boo me. Now you have seen it for yourself. But you are still pontificating. Huh? Are you not hearing me? I am saying we have come to the end of the road. And what is the president saying? If. And he's not saying anything. So the wife is watching and saying, what's going on here?
Could she be angling for him to be removed so that she could replace him as VP?
She's already saying that the position, he must go.
Right, but is there any chance that she could be appointed as VP?
This post is reserved for women. So she is the leader of the women in ZANU. So it's for her to decide whether she takes it or she doesn't take it. But whatever the case, the difference is the same. Because she can always remove that person.
And then that basically positions her to be president should he pass away.
Yeah, what is 1 + 1?
Oh dear.
She is saying, but if she trusts somebody to take that position, and it was like Mnangagwa, they said, we put him there, now he's a snake. So maybe a trust level has gone so down, so low. Today, when we have reached the tail end of the interface, we get all this nonsense. I don't like it. I don't like this. So to the people in Masvingo with their attitude, he's not talking direct to Mnangagwa there.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and form your party because we honestly cannot have this. What is the wife saying? We have no time to talk anymore.
Yeah.
Let's call a spade a spade. We cannot be insulted on a daily basis. We are being insulted, says the wife. And the president is saying what? We are being insulted. So if you are being insulted, get on with it. Fire the guy. Remove him. President Mugabe instructs that party cars which were meant to be delivered to the provinces in the provinces are to be handed over before the end of the month. Let us adhere to the party's constitution who vets youths and the women's wing. So that's President Mugabe. Do you think they're saying the same thing?
They're not saying the same thing, because he doesn't seem to be as. Because she sounds like she's making it sound as if it's automatic that what's his name's gone.
Yeah.
And Mugabe sounds as if he's still questioning it. But he is saying make another party. Now, if there was to be another party, would that mean that Mnangagwa was the leader of that party? Or no?
Yeah, he is talking to Mnangagwa without talking to him. Because the wife is very clear.
Yeah.
That
she's pushing for that slot to be opened.
No, she's saying the slot is already opened.
Yeah.
Because it's our seat. It's not seat for men. So we have demanded the seat back.
People need to hit up with President Grace Mugabe if you're not careful.
Eh? Yeah, then Lord Mo Karanda said, insulted and getting excited with no solution to the problem. I think he's being hanged to dry. That's what some... So Mugabe is saying insulted, but unlike the wife, who is decisive, she has already crossed the river.
Yeah.
She said, no. I can't have this. But
she's clearly...
Yeah?
I said it appears that Grace has clearly got an agenda. She's been pushing for presidency, and if she can't get it by being elected, she can get it if she's vice chair. I mean, if she's vice president. Should Mugabe pass away, and she's vice president.
Yeah, but hear her out. She is not saying, I want to be president. She is saying, I've been insulted too much. I've been bamboozled. I've been humiliated. And my husband thinks I'm hallucinating. So when I tell him, he still wants to think. But Rome is burning. There are people who don't like her, but like him. Why would they like him and dislike her? It's like relatives who don't like what? The in-law.
The in-laws, yeah.
Then they come to visit. And the wife comes home, finds the unwanted there. What is she going to do?
Complain.
No, my friend, let's talk. What the hell is going on here? Huh? I thought I told you that this person must not be here.
Yeah.
And you don't listen at all to me. So do you want to marry your mother? And if you don't, and you respect me, what are you saying about me? I'm the mother of your children, the grandmother to your grandson or granddaughter. Now talk to me now. So tonight, you'll be asked so many questions. What did you say today? What is the resolution today?
Yeah.
So tomorrow she'll be addressing my post story. And she will finish the job. Why is he still living there? Why is he still... He's saying, somebody, Tawanda says, why is he still there? Because he still thinks there is still a difference between the husband and wife, is it? The husband is throwing an olive what? Olive branch.
Branch. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And the wife is throwing no branch at all. She's going She's going for broke. She's saying to hell with this nonsense. It can't be
But
the
he,
case.
I mean, it's great because she has said something that he, in his name, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
To say that he said this, and then he comes forward and he is contradicting what she was asserting.
Yeah. He's saying, I don't have enough to go by.
Yeah.
Because Mnangagwa is here with me and his wife. And he's making the right slogans. So how can I say he doesn't? I can't reconcile the Mnangagwa I know with the version that I'm getting.
You get it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not there yet. But I'm getting there. Slowly I can see the bigger picture. But Mugabe has not bought the whole story.
Yeah.
He's still grudgingly moving towards the inevitable. But it looks like Mugabe has already decided that in December something must happen. So I think that is already certain. But he is not saying that between now and December, I'm willing to do something. Where the First Lady has already made her decision.
Yeah.
And she has already said that if you don't believe me, I will show you.
But that situation does not seem to make sense because as First Lady, she doesn't really like it's almost it feels as if she's overstepping her role.
Yeah. So that is the
trying to assert a decision upon her husband.
Yeah.
That he himself hasn't even.
And I think what we are seeing is what is a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that difference of opinion is what makes it.
That should actually be a bit, if anything, I know it's kind of weird to think of anything being comforting at this point, but it may indicate that he may not be fully under her, because people seem to have this impression that Mugabe is under Grace's control.
Yeah.
But that there can be opinion which show that he may not be, he's not completely under her control. He still has some,
yeah,
I guess, factors left about him to at least, really consider what's being presented without just jumping because she says.
That's where yeah.
But it would be interesting to know why she's pushing so hard.
I mean, she's because when you are being accused, you then what? You then have to imagine you are ridiculed, and your husband is the center of power. What would you do?
But that's the thing, is that that's a personal issue. Okay, for example, we're just using Trump as an example.
Yeah.
First became president.
Yeah.
Right? Melania, his wife.
Yeah.
Speech by Obama for her past as a Playboy, model and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And the president didn't say anything about that.
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes that's how the people are. There's certain things you respond to, although Trump responds to stupid things. But for the most part, in a position of power, there's certain things you respond to and there's certain things that you don't. So the idea that his wife being booed, for whatever reason, really isn't something for her to be calling for, for the displacement of of a member of his government.
Yeah. But when you look at it from the human element, and you see this is happening, and your husband trusts. So let's say I come home, my mother, who is the mother-in-law to my wife, while I'm gone, they are fighting. And I come home, who do I take sides with? I take sides with, I take, yeah, I take sides with my mother. And then the wife feels what? Feels shafted.
Yes.
Yeah. And what then happens?
But again, that's why it's a personal issue, and this is what is very scary about the way Grace is behaving as First Lady.
Yeah.
Is personal issues. She is turning into national issues.
Yeah.
Right? Things that affect her personally, she is using them as a way to then dictate things that happen nationally.
Yeah.
Right? And again, and this is not even the first time that she's done something like this. She's done something several times, even in that whole situation with the kids in South Africa. Right? That was a personal issue.
Yeah.
Right? Which she then turned to some kind of a national issue. Didn't need to be.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, she should not be doing that. That's the thing. She turns her personal slights, and it shows that she herself is very uneducated, doctor or not, very uneducated in terms of what her role is.
Yeah.
Or even an illusion of what power she holds.
Yeah. But if she turns around and says, if we have now an emergency, people are saying my husband is too old. Imagine I come to your house and you have married an older man and everybody's talking about age. What would you say? As if my husband is about, as if my husband is about to die. And everybody's talking about what happens when my husband dies.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She's positioned as power once Mugabe passes away.
Yeah. So no, she's seeing all these schemes.
Yeah, because I think at this point, because she did actually attempt to run, and then she realized she doesn't have any support, right? So at this point, the only way that she can end up in the seat as president is if she's in the seat as vice president.
Yeah.
Right? And in order for her to get that seat as vice president, the current vice president needs to not be there anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because if Mugabe passes away, the vice president stands in as president until a new president is elected.
Yeah, but that's what.
So if Mugabe passes away and she.
But that's what she's saying is.
If Mugabe passes away, just first lady, she has no more power. The power's gone.
Yeah, but that's what she's now saying. How do I, as a wife, as a young wife, and probably I will get to live longer than my husband. And people genuinely, the vice president appointed by my husband doesn't actually respect me.
But that's the thing, she's no more in the not White House, I was going to say White House, she's no more in the State House, so she's no more in that role. She's not first lady anymore because the president has passed. She's got no more, that power that she currently has as first lady goes away once Mugabe passes away. Unless she becomes vice president. Because she's got no other position in the government. Right?
That's right.
Other than that of the White House.
Yeah. So
if she outlives her husband, right? She can't say nothing about anybody.
Yeah, so she's saying before that happens.
Because she actually got
Yeah. So she's saying, I mean, so what could be in her mind? Hello?
Yeah, I'm thinking because again, she is someone that is said to have been attempting to run for president, right?
No,
Just did not
she has never attempted to run for president.
Well, they were saying that she was building up a party, and I guess it was in the works that she was going to run.
No. She has said there's only one center of power.
Yeah, that's right now.
Yeah, so she has not threatened to run.
But what is her exit plan once Mugabe is no longer in power?
Like everybody else, nobody has a plan. Like we never adequately prepare for death. Even Mugabe himself.
No, I know. But at this point, I mean, he's 92 years old, and yes, no one's wishing him early death. But 92 years old, his time is coming. He's got maybe another 8 years. Who knows?
No,
the reality is, she's right.
He's saying to know I'm not about to die yet.
Yeah. So okay. Even given granted he's not about to die yet, he will still likely outlive her. So let's assume that he is still president at the time he outlives her.
Yeah.
Right? That she outlives her at the time that he passes.
Yeah.
Then her role is it's no longer, because she's not a government elected official, right?
Yeah.
So even the idea that she's speaking on the jobs of government elected officials makes no sense. She's not, she herself individually is not government elected.
Yeah.
She should have no say in what's happening with the jobs of government elected officials.
Yeah. So she should have no say.
So he passes.
But the reality
is, if he passes based on how.
Yeah.
She should She can have a say in his ear, but she should not have a say publicly, which is what she's doing, right?
Yeah,
what she whispers to him in his ear is one thing.
But she knows that, like his vice presidents, they also don't know where they stand, because other people are saying you must appoint a successor, and he's saying I'm not going to appoint a successor.
I'm not dying.
Because I'm not dying. Why are you wishing me to die when I'm not yet ready to die?
Yeah.
So he is not willing to die yet.
No, it's not his time.
And he's saying, okay. So Tawana Chikore said, we had that before cabinet reshuffle. What happened? Mnangagwa was not fired as expected by them. So it means Mugabe is still not yet convinced that Mnangagwa is a bad person. Would you agree?
Yeah.
That if
Mugabe... But for myself, I am more interested as to why is his wife pushing so much for the removal of this man.
The wife is saying all the problems that we are facing.
Because of this man.
Yeah. Are coming because of him.
But that's her opinion and not his.
Yeah.
And as first lady, she doesn't even get to have. She can have that opinion in private. All she wants as his wife, she can tell him in her ear, "This is what I think about your friend." But she should not be having a platform to express that opinion, especially that opinion opposes her husband.
Yeah, but
doesn't share this opinion. He is the head of state.
Yeah. He is the head of state, and all he's saying is that, but I got my wife, who is my loved one. Yeah. So why should I have to explain to other people?
But we do see that there's a huge fault in this, because again, they're making their personal issues, their personal slights, be government issues, right?
Yeah.
Issues that affect the nation,
Mm-hmm.
and that is grossly inappropriate.
Yeah.
As I said, she's human, you're right, right? She's human, she has no one's saying that she's wrong for feeling offended for being booed.
Yeah.
Okay? Her feelings are hurt. She is entitled to her feelings. She's entitled to her opinion, right? But that opinion she can share with her husband, as any woman that gets hurt does with their husband.
Yeah.
But she should not be using it to then manipulate things on a public platform.
Yeah.
Especially if her opinions are opposed to her husband, who is the actual leader. Or,
Yeah.
as we know.
But now she's saying, if I marry you, then what happens? Am I supposed to be outside the cockpit or inside?
Every other first lady has supported their husband privately and has spoken out. Like, for example, her speaking out about her women's league and her youth league, that stuff she can speak on.
Yeah.
That's what she runs, or she's in charge of, right, as first lady.
Okay.
But her speaking on issues related to the duties of the president, that is not her role.
So you're saying there
And
should
that
be...
is no first lady. No first lady in they speak on what they do.
So you're
right?
saying...
But they don't speak on
So,
that they ask that the president is making.
so you're saying there should be a separation?
For sure there has to be a separation. Again, no one is saying that she shouldn't be upset. No one is saying that. She's a woman. People say hurtful things. But those things do not need to become national issues.
Okay.
And if she thinks her husband needs to be standing up for her because people booed her, that is inappropriate as a first lady.
Okay. So I think that's the power dynamics and the human dynamics. There are things we are not supposed to do, but the things we do anyway.
Yeah. But it's also but that's only allowed when when you don't understand or you don't respect, your roles. You either don't understand your role, so you think it's
But sometimes it's literacy, but also sometimes the support system that the power exists does not respect the rules, but the end will justify the means. So the First Lady is not alone. There are people who feel threatened by any change that doesn't go their way.
Yeah.
So they'll fight hard to direct events in a certain manner, in a certain direction, towards a certain destination.
Yeah.
And one cannot be oblivious to the dynamics of life.
But to be very honest, in many cases, except for the recent U.S. President, Trump is
Yeah.
a special case.
Yeah.
but in most cases, right, even in those situations, again, knowing their duties in these positions, they at least how can I put it? They're not as open about it.
As not as overt.
As open, that means that you're showing you're above the law.
Yeah.
Right? You are basically declaring that you're above the law.
Yeah.
Which no one is. No one should be above the law.
Yeah, that's the message. So if you are watching, if you are listening, I think Sanel is given an exit, I think, punch, that actually there ought to be limitations imposed on public office bearers. It is them directly who are accountable. It is not their spouses. When you elect somebody, that person ought to discharge the duties as contemplated by the people who put him in that position. What do people of Zimbabwe want? What kind of government do they want? What kind of separation of powers, if any? Should we be equal before the law? Should the promise of the Bill of Rights be equal to all, or the promise should be qualified? Those with political voltage necessarily must have an advantage. Those who don't must be subjected to the full might of the law. Those are the choices you want. I think the First Lady has given your direction as to what the one center of power means or ought to mean. But what is your say? Should the executive sit as adjudicators of disputes? Should she even have an opinion on matters that should fall outside the ambit of any president? Or a banana republic must ensue where you actually don't know the limitations? On that score, I think whether our discussion must have satisfied many people. Silence means everybody is happy. If you happen to be unhappy, we are not charging you anything for your unhappiness. But if you happen to be satisfied with the conversation, keep on the conversation, share this conversation with other people, enrich, enlighten, enlarge, provoke, inspire, ignite others to begin to take stock of what active citizenship is and ought to be. Thank you very much for your time. Until we do this again, goodbye.